in the hospitality industry. There are those that have threatened to beat me up. I'm the CEO of Laguru Club, fitness and wellness brand. I'm also the founder of Bountee Tech. I went to the UK for my A-levels. I didn't return until I was 24, going on 25. This was around the time the first couple of tech startups got into YC. So it was the beginning for a lot of companies like Paystar. So there was a lot of excitement in the space and I wanted to be part of it. So I had gotten a job in a UK bank, but I just felt like there was more. Tech was something that I felt like I experimented with. I thought, I'm going to try this out for a while. If it doesn't work, I'm going to pivot. So my career kind of pivoted into entrepreneurship. So when we opened the barbershop, it was about 2 years after we had started the gym. At the time also, I didn't have any experience with barbering business or the barbering world, but I had to learn very quickly. Empty, we didn't have any customers. We had to put in a lot of work. So we literally went from 0 customers to having a line where people had to wait 4 hours to get a haircut. And that happened in a matter of 2-3 weeks.
Welcome to the Africa 2100 podcast, where we demystify entrepreneurship to make it accessible to the person on the street. I am your host, Chinedu Nwaeze. This season, we are following the journey of those who were in the diaspora, but since returned to the continent and are building impactful ventures. It is often said that entrepreneurship is not a straight line. Today's episode highlights the importance of being intentional when opportunities do arise. Our guest today is Chinedu Nwaeze. Welcome, Chinedu.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Judy.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. So, Chinedu, what does your name mean?
That's a good question. It means God leads in Igbo.
God leads.
All right. God leads, yes.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I mean, having a similar name to how most Igbo names start off with God and remember and highlights the role God plays in our lives. Yeah. So I see there's one Aba. What does that mean on your hat?
Well, so I was born in Aba. So it's just something I like to. I'm from Abia State, from Umuahia. I'm born in Aba, so it's just something I like to wear in my apparel every now and again.
Is that a brand of yours, or is that somebody else?
I mean, I think it's something a lot of Igbo people wear, a lot of people from Aba wear. So I don't know if it's something I can trademark, but I like to wear it. I should look into that. If it's not trademark, I might.
Exactly. There may be an opportunity here, and I'm calling dibs on it first before you. So you owe me. So Chinedu, for those of our audience who don't know you, how can we or should we describe you? Who is Chinedu?
Chinedu is an entrepreneur. I think that'll be a simple way to describe myself. I'm the CEO of Laguru Club. Laguru Club is a wellness brand, a fitness and wellness brand. We have businesses in fitness, grooming, and hospitality. I'm also the founder of Bountee Tech, which is a software that aims to provide entrepreneurs with all the tools they need to scale.
So I'm hearing a lot of business and entrepreneurship. Where did that come from? What's influenced you down this path? Any childhood memories?
So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My dad was an entrepreneur. He didn't actually have a formal education in the sense of, going to university. He was one of the, quote unquote benefactors of the Igbo apprenticeship system. So he started off pretty early. started a company called News Engineering, which is today one of Nigeria's foremost electrical construction firms. My mother as well was an entrepreneur. She also had her own business, which she kind of balanced with going to school while we were young. But there was always that entrepreneurial spirit floating around. I think that's what was the norm to us. We didn't have typical 9 to 5ers or political parents. They went out, they started businesses. So we grew up with that being the norm, and as they say, not everything is taught, but something that just caught. So I think, we all caught the bug, every single one of us. My siblings, I have 7 siblings, every single one's an entrepreneur.
Oh, wow. You made mention of the Igbo um, entrepreneur system, trading system. Could you share for those of us who are not that familiar with it? What's the Igbo apprenticeship system? I think is what how you posited it.
Yes. So the Igbo apprenticeship system creates a program where young men and women, instead of going to a formal education in university, gets to learn from a seasoned entrepreneur, and is typically in trade or some sort of skill. So you'd have people who would go to Lagos to work under a master, as they would call it, who was selling, building materials, for example. Or you would have young men go to learn a skill, a trade, whether it was carpentry, electrical works, from somebody that was also more seasoned. So my dad took the latter. He went to Niger States to learn electrical works. So he was an electrician, and then that grew into a electrical construction company.
Right. But that system wasn't then applied to any one of you, even though you didn't know you were at the ringside uh, observing, because they say children are like sponges. They soak in everything rather than what you tell them. They are absorbing. But none of you
Well,
went down that path.
to be fair, this happened before we were born. As at the time that we were born, my father was already an entrepreneur. He was already on his journey. So we only heard stories.
Right.
Um, so it was
Yeah.
very clear that education meant a lot to him for us
Right.
growing up. So we had a very different upbringing than he did. I think there was less opportunities back in post Biafran War era for men like him. So the apprenticeship system was the only way that they could, make their way out of poverty. But for us, we were a bit more privileged, so we had a formal education.
And is it that formal education that now drove you or took you out of the country? How did you reach that decision to you and your family, rather than staying closer to home, deciding
Yeah,
to?
it was education. Yes, I went to the UK for my A levels, and then afterwards, university, and stayed back for a bit before I moved back.
So A levels, which means you left home at 15, 16?
16.
16, okay.
I didn't return until I was 24, going on 25.
And how was A levels in the UK and university? What was that experience like?
Well, the educational system in the UK was a lot more hands-on than it was in Nigeria. Um, I did have very good education in Nigeria, but I noticed when I got to the UK, I was already in a very STEM route. I was doing more engineering and IT, computer-related courses, and we got to do a lot more practical, which kind of helped me being a visual learner. Like a lot of what I was learning before I traveled to the UK was very abstract, but getting that formal education in the UK it helped me get my hands dirty in a lot of the concepts that I'd previously just seen on textbooks.
How did you realize that uh, IT was the path for you?
So when I was a kid, I wanted, I guess because of video games, I thought I enjoyed video games so much, I want to learn how to make video games. So I feel like that was my first, that's where IT became intriguing to me. We had one computer and that all the kids share, and you had to dial up back then. It was very, very poor technology. But it made me very excited about this new technology that wasn't At the time, it was very new. We hadn't seen anything like it. So I thought this was going to be a redefining technology. It's going to control how we do business and communicate. Even back then, I didn't, maybe I couldn't articulate it the way I can now, but I knew that it was very exciting technology. So I would always tell my mom I want to study computer science. And being from an engineering family, there was always that encouragement to do engineering. They didn't force me, but there was definitely an encouragement to do engineering. At the time, the tech space in Nigeria wasn't what it is now. I was a 12-year-old kid saying I want to study computer science, but there wasn't really any places you could work. Telecoms kind of came later on with MTN and Globalcom, and the sector started to, that was the foundation of the sector, but it still wasn't clear. There wasn't any clear path. So I did end up studying engineering because of that lack of um, development in the industry. So I studied, my first degree was in electrical engineering. I didn't finish. I transferred to Buckingham University and then I studied computer science when I got the opportunity.
So, are there any video games out there that you built or created along the way, given that that was your initial fascination?
No, no. I wish my direction.
There's still time, Chinedu.
There's still time. I mean, I have other things. So what my fascination was at the time was building websites, because that's all you could do on the internet for a long time. You could go
Right.
on there, do this cool websites where you could learn about so much. I didn't have the coding talent to go into video games at a young age. So I did create a lot of blogs. I was already blogging in secondary school, so I started learning how to make simple web pages. I'll go on YouTube, the earliest versions of YouTube, where they were like little tutorials on how to do things. And I would learn how to make simple web pages and then try and blog about my experience in secondary school. I probably had like 2 or 3 readers. My sister in the UK would log in once in a while and they call me like, oh, I saw what you tweeted, not tweeted, I saw what you blogged about. And, maybe her, a few of my classmates. But that was like my first venture, you could call it.
And then you somewhere along the line decided, okay, the .com, you missed out on the .com in the global north, and you wanted to be part of the .com boom on the continent. Tell us about that decision making to return home.
So I returned in 2015, and this was around the time the first couple of tech startups got into YC. Around this period, not exactly, but maybe a few years before. YC was a tech startup accelerator, and I paid attention to that space a lot. So it was the beginning for a lot of companies like Paystack and so many successful tech startups. So it felt like there was a path now. At first we didn't know how to go about creating an industry. And then we had this, American accelerator taking Nigerian startups. You kind of saw the potential of what Nigerian tech space could be before a lot of, Nigerian VCs. So there was a lot of excitement. A lot of people were building technology. My older brother was a tech founder as well. He created Encarta, one of the first delivery companies in Abuja, where you could order for your groceries or food and you'd have it delivered to you. So there was a lot of excitement in the space and I wanted to be part of it. At the time, I was working in retail in the UK. I was working for a company, Hugo Boss, and I was making my transition into banking, which was like a graduate program that a lot of tech people or tech students had the opportunity to do. So I had gotten a job in a UK bank, but I just felt like there was more. Like I felt like I could achieve a lot more if I went back to Nigeria. So I kind of made the decision after I graduated that I wasn't going to go the graduate scheme route. I would go back to Nigeria. I had no idea. I had no startups, but I just wanted to be part of the ecosystem. There were so many new companies coming up, and I'll find my way around. Um, I tried applying for a company called Andela, which at the time was recruiting and training a lot of tech talent. I didn't get in, but it was still exciting just being in that space of applying for this and applying for that. And eventually I started my own digital agency. Or like in the meantime, with before I
So
get the
let me stop you for a moment, Chinedu. So here you are, you come back, you try to get into Andela. You also, there's so much going on. And all of a sudden, you make the decision to start your own. Help us understand that thinking or rationale. What was going through your head at that time?
so I wanted to work for a tech company and I couldn't get into there was a lot of competition and there was very little space. So I decided to set up a digital agency where I would help other people with their own projects. I felt like that was the way to go at the time. I wasn't exactly sure of how what other opportunities were gonna come my way. So it's kind of like taking things into my own hands where I'm like, okay, I know how to code. I'm a relatively good coder. A lot of people wanted very simple solutions at the time. They weren't building the next Uber. A lot of the ideas I came to meet, yeah, and I'm not even trying to make fun of. It was an early or young industry, so these were things that I could build fairly easily with a few um, coders I had with me at the time. So I felt like, okay, if this is how I get into the tech space, then why not? Like we would build for other people, get paid, save up enough money until we had that idea that we could build for ourselves and put into the market.
So I remember at that time, well, I know at this time, the infrastructure is still a challenge out there on the continent. But if we turn back the hands of the clock to the period you're talking about, how were you able to navigate with all of those challenges, infrastructure challenges, whether it was network, power, whatever they may be? Tell us about that and still make the decision to forge ahead and start your own technology company.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, at the time I came back, the internet had improved dramatically. There were new players. There was Spectranet, Smile. A lot of telecoms companies were picking up, and internet was becoming slightly better. I mean, it's not as good as it is now, but it definitely was an improvement from when I left the country. So that would have been the major infrastructural challenge. Um, well, we faced other challenges that arose when we decided to start putting out our own products. Um, Mainly how people perceived tech companies. I think that was more of a challenge for us rather than the infrastructure itself. The infrastructure gaps had started to be filled um, across all levels. So for us, it was more consumer behavior that was the challenge.
You want to tell us a little more about what you mean by consumer behavior? What
So
exactly were you observing?
so, so the different phases to my early tech journey that led to me kind of taking a step back and going in a different direction. But for one, we a lot of the customers that we were speaking to had had high distrust for tech. They didn't see how tech could transform the sectors that we were trying to innovate around. Um, One of the first applications that I developed and put out was a company called Unimarket. It was a very simple idea where students could buy and sell and trade amongst themselves and also get discounts from different businesses. One
Kind
of
of
the
like
first,
an eBay or Groupon?
yeah, well, I mean, a mixture of both of them actually, yes. Right, but
Okay.
specifically just for students and people doing NYC because that's what I was doing at the time. And there weren't any APIs to support this. So we had to create those APIs.
APIs for those who are not
Yeah.
tech savvy. API means?
So, in simple terms, something to just verify that someone's a student,
Okay.
right? So other people couldn't just get on the application. So speaking to the relevant schools and the NYSC proved to be very difficult. They didn't see why they needed these applications. They didn't have the tech to integrate with ours. And speaking to businesses to tell them, oh, we could drive a lot more traffic to your business if you offer student discounts, or if you order student discounts in a way that could be verified and redeemed, through applications. And they didn't just see the use case. They weren't very interested. So we tried a lot of different solutions around different sectors. And I think it was that, I would say, consumer behavior. There was a high user acquisition cost. And at the time we were bootstrapping, we couldn't sustain our burn rates. So we just closed up shop and went back to just developing for other people. And we're like, okay, when the industry kind of catches up, we'll try again. It's also fair to say that we were in Abuja, and a lot of the excitement in tech in Nigeria was happening in Lagos, where a lot of companies were raising a lot of money, where they could afford to sustain high burn rates and market and educate users on while certain solutions were important. And I think that what we might have missed is, in tech, there are certain solutions that need to come before others. And one of the areas that was really fragmented was payment. So at the time, there was a lot of excitement around fintechs. So fintechs were getting funded heavily. And that's why you see a lot of big fintech companies today. So it wasn't a case of whether certain things were good or bad ideas. With tech, there's always timing, knowing when to put out certain products. So that's something that we had to learn the hard way.
So why, I have a number of questions. So why the decision to go to Abuja? You're trying to build a tech company, and you recognize Lagos is the happening. Lagos is the Silicon Valley.
Right.
And why Abuja instead of going to Lagos?
That's a very good question. I've lived in Abuja for most of my life. Abuja is familiar.
Even before you traveled out of the country?
Yeah.
That's where you grew up. Okay.
I grew up in Abuja. I did my primary school and secondary school in Abuja before I moved to the UK. So if I was to return to Nigeria, it would be back to a city that I was familiar with. Now I think that it might have been a better decision to move to Lagos. But I didn't know anyone in Lagos. I didn't have a lot of family in Lagos, and I always felt like I could fly in, but the ecosystem is very different, Abuja and Lagos. So yeah, it was just a matter of convenience for me at the time.
Okay. So now you've now shifted gears. You've shifted from trying to build a product and shifted back to providing services, consulting services to corporate clientele. What next?
So what happened after that was a number of things. Tech was something that I felt like I experimented with. I thought, I'm going to try this out for a while. If it doesn't work, I'm going to pivot. So my career kind of pivoted into entrepreneurship. I set up Laguru in 2016, 2017.
What does Laguru mean?
Laguru is a place in my village. It's actually pronounced Laguru, but like for a broader audience that might not be able to pronounce it, I rephrase it to Laguru. Sounds French, but no, it's an Igbo word. It's a place in Abia State.
Okay.
Yeah. So my career pivoted. I started to study project management, and that was because I started to work in my family business. That's a construction company. while working for my family, one of the projects that we were building was a hospitality business, which ended up not panning out the way we expected. But we had already acquired gym equipment. So I went to the board and I said, okay, instead of this the gym equipment going to waste or us selling them off, I could take them off your hands and set up a gym, and we could do a profit sharing kind of arrangement. So it was really trying to salvage what was a bad situation and branch off into a completely uncharted territory for me. I liked working out, but I wouldn't said I was a fitness or lifestyle entrepreneur at the time. I kind of just saw an opportunity and took it. And like, okay, how do we make a good situation out of this? And that was like the birth of Laguru. And then that gym now grew into all the other subsidiaries that we have today.
What was the reaction by your family when you went with that proposal?
I think they were excited. They thought it was a good initiative. They thought I was, exhibiting good entrepreneurial instincts. Instead of folding, you look for how you can salvage situations. So there was a lot of support, both financially and in terms of helping me know what to expect when you go into this kind of business. It wasn't tech, it's not school, it's not, retail. This was, you had to run an establishment. You had to have high standards. You have staff. We grew very quickly from about 4 staff to about 38 staff, and other things start to be, there's certain things you have to refine: your leadership style, how you market, how you structure the company for growth. So the first few years was a learning curve for me, I would admit.
Yeah. You decide because you have this opportunity, this fitness equipment, to start up a business based on what you had on hand. Did you do any assessment to determine whether there will be customers or what the demand was? I know you loved working out, but did you have a sense, a feel on the marketplace to know that there's an opportunity for this?
I don't know that I put that much thought into doing any kind of data analytics or acquisition, or I didn't do any questionnaires. Or I knew that there was a large fitness community in Abuja, and I thought that a gym was good business. What I did do was I took a lot of what I'd learned from the tech industry and brought it into the fitness space in terms of the way that we marketed the business, the way that we structured the business. I started to get into content creation very early, and that was as a result of my experience in the digital agency. So the way you market your business, the way you acquire customers, the way people register, the websites that we built, all the internal tech tools that we created that gave us a certain level of efficiency that allowed us to grow quickly. All of that was from my experience in my early days in the tech space. So that's what followed me. But at the time I started Laguru, there wasn't any research into, do I think this is going to be a good business or not? I kind of just had that faith that things would work out.
So you say it's Laguru businesses. So there's more than just the gym. What are the other aspects that Laguru offers, the set group of companies or businesses under the Laguru umbrella?
Yeah, so the umbrella is called Laguru Club, and there are two main businesses. There's Laguru Wellness, that has to do with fitness, relaxation and recovery, and workouts. And then there's Laguru Grooming, and that's more barbershop and hair care products. So those will be the two umbrellas for Laguru.
Turn your idea into a viable business with structure. The Arise app, powered by D2V, helps you start, grow, and build through guided learning and mentorship. Scan the QR code and explore the app today.
Tell me about the barbershop piece, the lifetime, the wellness. I think I understand.
So Laguru Barbers was a subsidiary that we created when we realized we have a good male clientele. So we were looking for other verticals, other businesses that we could open that could take advantage of existing clientele. So we decided to open up a barbershop. At the time, also, I didn't have any experience with the barbering business or the barbering world, but I had to learn very quickly. Luckily, there was a lot of material on YouTube to help me out. So when we opened the barbershop, it was about 2 years after we had started the gym. It was empty. We didn't have any customers. Trying to get people to break from their habit of going to their, trusted barber to cut in with us was very difficult. So we had to put in a lot of work. I remember going 3, 4, 5 days, we would have maybe 2 customers. Right? Even the gym members weren't ready. Just because we trust you with our fitness goals doesn't mean we trust you with our airline. So it was very difficult the first couple of months. And I started to pay attention to what a lot of American barbers were doing, some of the best in the game. I would sit down all day and just watch video after video. And I started to notice how they cut. They all cut the same way. There was like a system to it. It wasn't just them cutting clip, cutting hair. There was an actual technique, more like an algorithm, if you will, right? There's a way they started, where they finished. And then I started to write this down and draw up like a blueprint for my barbers. You need to start here and end here. You need to do this. You need to put your guideline. This area is called the temple T points. And we brought out like a blueprint for how to cut hair, right? So it was a lot of I didn't realize it was a lot of my tech instincts and trying to solve problems that made me come up with this blueprint. And we started to record that. And I think a lot of customers started to believe or started to have faith in the business because we showed our process. We showed our growth. We started with 2 chairs. And when we started to market, we went very aggressive. We weren't just showing, oh, look how beautiful our barbershop is. We're showing, look, we know how to cut. So we're showing all of our training. We're showing all our academy
And
shots with me.
how were you showing up? You were recording your barber's cutting hair and putting it online, or how were you demonstrating your expertise and your process?
We were showing everything from our meetings to our trainings to them cutting. So we had a lot of people paying attention to what we were doing, how we were growing our brand without realizing. So at the time, content creation was not what it is today, but we started connecting with our audience in a way that no other barbershop was. So we literally went from 0 customers to having a line, where people had to wait 4 hours to get a haircut. And that happened in a matter of maybe 2, 3 weeks. It happened fairly quickly. And that's kind of what opened my eye to the power of social media. We didn't know how quickly the brand could grow just by constantly putting out content. People don't just want to come and see how good your haircut is. They want to see everything.
Was there a certain demographic that this was attracting, or was it across the board?
It was across the board for the most part, but I think maybe more young boys because we tried to be very trendy with our haircuts. We used to do a lot of design. We would color our hair differently. We tried to make it a very exciting brand. So that was my first experience in building a brand, and it really resonated with a lot of boys in Abuja. We had people coming in from Kwagalada, which is maybe 2, 3 hours or like 2 hours away, to come get a haircut. We had a lot of young boys wait for 4 hours to get a haircut because it felt like, these guys knew what they were doing. with most barbershops, everybody had that one barber that they went to. With ours, decided to trust whoever was on the chair at the time. So we had to grow and get more chairs, and we went from two chairs to about 8 chairs very quickly. And then we opened our second store. Um, so we did all of this off just following people who knew what they were doing, like following and replicating what the best in the industry was doing, and marketing, very aggressively on social media.
So here you decided you're going to start a barbershop and you're watching videos of American barbers. And as you were watching those videos, were you one of the initial barbers, or did you ever cut hair yourself in any of your shops?
I describe myself as a barbing coach, but I've never cut.
Barbing, but you never have.
No, I coach.
Okay. So can we go back to the statement, those who can't do, teach? Is that what was happening here?
I can't say that. I've always had the confidence that if I ever tried, I would be very good. Well, I've never an incentive for me to try. So I would rather spend my time teaching people who had the passion to cut. What I did was demystify barbing, right? And break it down into 5 techniques that you had to master through repetition. That's what we did. It wasn't anything complicated. A lot of people would come to us and be like, oh, they've been cutting for 10 years. And we'll tell them, from what we can see, you've repeated 10, 1 year 10 times. You haven't improved. You haven't picked up any new technique. So all we did was introduce these techniques to these young men and force them to repeat it as many times as they needed to till it became second nature. So that is a skill for a coach to do, to break these things down and explain it to them. But to actually pick up the clipper and cut it, I've never done that.
So how easy though was it to, because having gone to barbers, they do what they do, how they do it. Even you as the customer barely have a say. Because you speak up, they say, at least back there on the continent. How easy was it to win them over to being coachable, to accepting that there's a different way of doing this?
I think that might be one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur. You would find that trying to change the way people think is very difficult. A lot of people are stuck in their ways, especially when they believe that this has worked for me so far, so why do I need to learn anything new? And particularly that group of young men, barbers, and women too, are very opinionated. They're very difficult to work with. So trying to get through to them, the first thing that we would do was to instill some level of discipline. So we started to structure our organization in a way where when you come to work for us, you had to do 3 months mandatory shadowing. That is, regardless of how long you've been barbing, you come for the first 3 months, you're not allowed to touch a clipper. You help out with the shop, you clean the shop, you go on errands, and you watch what the other barbers are doing. And we did this just to try and breed some sort of discipline. I would pay them for this period, right? And just to get them out of that system that they were used to understand you're now in a structured system and you must incentivize them, So we would pay them and would say, if you can complete it to 3 months, you would get a signing bonus. So we would pay them to learn how to cut hair properly, because that's the only way young men would listen to you, if you speak to their pockets. So I think that was one of the ways that we distinguished ourselves. While most barbershops were charging people to learn, we were paying people to learn. We would go into some of the underserved communities in Abuja, get young men that were hungry to move to town. I would say, okay, we'll pay you, at the time I think it was 50K. So we'll pay you 50K a month if you're interested in cutting hair. So we'll share 50K every month, 2 or 3 barbers, have them come and shadow. And then whoever makes it through the 3 months training program would stay on as a staff, and then the others would get let go. So it was somewhat of a competition within themselves.
I know it's been a colorful journey with as you engage some of these individuals. Are there any of those experiences you are willing to share with us? The characters you met along the way, or the experience.
There are those that have threatened to beat me up. Absolutely. When you're running a service business in the hospitality industry where people expect a certain level of professionalism, you have to have the carrot and stick system where you reward good behavior and you punish bad behavior. So we had staff who were very unruly where we would deduct them for late coming, we would deduct them for misconduct. And then I had a staff one time where his deduction got quite high and he didn't go home with any salary. And we tried not to interfere with the system. So if you come late, as many times as you come, you will get deducted. So he comes and he starts making a lot of threats that he's a family man. How can I deduct this amount of money? And I threatened to beat me up. Well, organized boys to beat me up. But, you know, when you're dealing with different characters, or you're dealing with people from different kind of upbringings, you have to be ready. You also have a system where you feel like they have a better opportunity somewhere else, regardless of whether they see how it affects your business or how much effort you put into training them. You just stand up and leave. So we've had situations where multiple barbers have had to leave at once, and you come to work and you're like, oh, where's this person? They're like, oh, some new barbershop opened up, and they offer them money to leave, and they're all gone now, and they have to start training again. But over time, I think what happened is customers started to realize that they could trust our system to continue to produce good barbers. So even when barbers leave, a lot of times the customers stay. So yeah, there are a lot of stories that maybe I'll tell you off camera. But yeah, I've had to deal with a lot of different characters.
So you're still a technologist at heart, and I am aware that you still found a way to leverage technology as you executed these businesses. Could you kind of share with us the genesis or where that has taken you to recently?
So when I started these other businesses, I realized that there wasn't a lot of tech, at least homegrown tech, to power these businesses. And a lot of the ones that were available were either very expensive or they didn't solve the problems that were unique to Nigerian businesses. So having a tech background, I thought, okay, why don't I create an application that I could use for my own business? So that set me on a path back into tech. I thought I was done with the tech space, but like being an entrepreneur and trying to bring some sort of structure to my own business, I needed to go back into that space to build a solution. I'll give you an example. Abroad, a lot of people have a culture of booking appointments before they go to the barbers or go to the dentist. So we don't have that culture in Nigeria. People would usually just walk into the barbershop and wait as long as they have to, or they would call their barber. And I realized that was causing a lot of nepotism in the shop, where barbers would favor clients that would tip them high. So their favorite clients would come in and get a haircut while there have been people that have been waiting. So I created a simple queuing system that led me to the company. The earliest idea was simple. When people come into the shop, they would get a number and you'd give them an estimated time, and you tell them their position in the queue. So you're number 4 on the queue, your estimated wait time is 2 hours. It kind of helped us organize a lot of the people that were waiting. So we started with a simple queuing sheet, and then we automated it. And then we thought, okay, there might be other businesses that want to use this application that don't work with queues. They might want to do appointments. So we built appointments into it. And then at the time, we had this loyalty cards that we used to give out to customers, where after every 4 haircuts, your fifth one was free. And we constantly had to keep printing this, and it cost a lot of money. So we thought, okay, how do we build a solution for this as well? And we automated that as well. So at the time of, with constant improvements and iterations, we noticed that what we had built wasn't just a barbershop management system, it was an SME management system. We decided to build inventory and expense, tax, all of that into this application. We decided to open it up to other businesses, and then we rebranded from Qtrim to Bountee, and we put out that application out to the public. Something that started as just a simple queuing system. Now we have other businesses, other barbershop, laundries, car washes using this application that we put out. And all of the features that we've built into it came from pain points that we've experienced as a business. So we took everything in our experience, built this application to solve our problem, and realized, okay, maybe other people could use this as well. And then we put it out into the market. So that was kind of like a long way to go back into tech, right? I got first-hand entrepreneurship experience and built that into a solution that I believe would help a lot of other entrepreneurs. And from a position of someone who's gone through these problems as well.
So would you then say that tech is a key differentiator of your venture?
Absolutely. One of the things that tech has given us is data. So it's allowed us to keep a long list of our clientele and their behavioral habits. When they like to come in, when the last time they were coming, they came in was their retention rates. So if somebody hasn't been to the shop in a while, we can call them and be like, oh, we haven't seen you in a while, why aren't you coming? And give them an avenue to complain if there's any grievances they've had with the business. It's also allowed us to have a certain level of efficiency. I always tell business owners, if you want to run your business effectively, you have to keep data, whether it's your expense data, your income data. You need to know, are you catering more to men, females, Gen Z, boomers? Because wherever your clientele is coming from, there are more people in that cluster. So you need to know what cluster of people you're appealing to, so you know what channels and where these people are and how to get more of them. So it has informed our marketing and the way we run our business, even down to our dress code, how we let our barbers dress a bit more. They don't wear uniform. We started out wearing uniform, trying to be strict. We experimented with a lot of different uniform styles, and then we kind of noticed that we had a lot of Gen Z clients who didn't really care about that. So we allow some level of expression of your individuality. So we have our barbers dress not however they want. They still have to follow a basic code, but they're allowed to dress, in a certain kind of style, which our clientele like. So I think tech for any business is the deciding factor of knowing how well your business is doing, how well it can do. If there's anything wrong, being able to spot what's wrong and how to fix it. All of that insights come from collecting data.
You're absolutely right. So the biggest challenge I see that most small businesses face is that inability to track or to understand the trend of their customers, the preferences, their needs, and as such, they are unable to scale. I think what you have here is really critical for any small business or venture that's looking to eventually scale. And with that, I ask you, what are your plans for opening up the kimono and giving others access to the technology innovation that you've created here. I mean, you built it in-house, but if I heard you correctly, you're willing to also make it available to others to get similar efficiencies, as well as to be able to track and also expand their customer base.
So that is in the plan. Initially, we wanted it to be just for our organization and be like that catalyst or competitive edge. But to build any great product, you need other people's input. So we did open it up to a few trusted associates, friends of mine who also had similar businesses. And we've been testing it within a small community to see how well it would perform. And also going through fundraising rounds as well, which would be, I guess, the determinant of how big we try to go, whether or not we leave it as as a small community application, or if we want it to be a nationwide or continental wide application. But it is something that we're looking at, putting out for different entrepreneurs to use. We're at that stage where I've learned a lot about business and tech to know that you just don't put applications out without knowing that you're solving real problems, without knowing that it's a solution that people want. It's one thing to have a marketing fund and just pump a lot of money into marketing. It's another thing to know that people actually want the solution and they're ready for it. I spoke earlier about consumer behavior, and I still see a lot of that in the space where people are still used to their paper and pen, and that's what they're used to. So trying to force that behavior change does cost a lot of money. But then there are communities and there are entrepreneurs who are ready, especially amongst, again, younger millennials and Gen Zs, who are ready to adopt tech into their operations. So with people like that, we're absolutely willing to work with them and scale this solution.
So let's shift gears quickly to the community and social impacts. Is there anything you're doing or have done to pay it forward? Because you've obviously done tremendously well with your entrepreneurial journey, and it will be helpful to understand how you are engaging or enabling others within the community.
So we have a business called Laguru Academy, where we've taken everything that we know about running a business and managing a business. We've taken everything we know about training good fitness instructors, everything we know about training good barbers, and we've made digital courses. And we've made this free to anyone who is interested. But we don't just open it up. We like to keep our community. We like to know who is in our community. So we don't just put it on a website. We have a Telegram group where we go and invite people who want to learn, and then we give them these resources. Like, a lot of them don't end up working for us. A lot of them take what we given them and they go work for someone else or open up their own shop. We also have people who've gone through our academy who open their own barbershops. We have about 3 barbers who are full-fledged entrepreneurs now. They own their own shops. For me, that's a source of pride, knowing that these are people who went through this academy and have become not just good barbers, but good business owners, and are employing other people as well. So at the foundation of everything we do is kind of learning. We like to teach. We believe that anybody can escape poverty. We give them the right knowledge and the right tools. So if I was to answer your question, I would say yes. What we do in giving back would be to teach as many people are interested how to run a business properly and how to cut hair properly, how to engage their customers, in an effective way that drives sales.
So teaching them how to fish and feeding them for a lifetime versus giving them fish. So.
Absolutely.
As you look back, and as we begin to wrap up, as you look back over the journey since your return, is there anything you would have done differently, and what advice would you give to those who are contemplating similar steps?
Mm. I think there's a large opportunity on the continent. I think it can be understated how much. I think people look at Africa and think that Africa has a long way to go. But that is the opportunity. The fact that there are so many fragmented industries and there's still so many solutions that are yet to be brought into the continent and made mainstream. That is the opportunity that a lot of us saw and came back. So if I had to advise anyone coming in, I think I would say, take the leap, but do your research. Understand that there are a lot of bottlenecks and there are a lot of cultural, I guess we're seeing nuances in Africa that might not translate to what you're used to in the West. Um, so anyone that wants to come back, do your research, understand the industry you're trying to get into, and understand that it will take time. There is a lot learning curve. A lot of people come in and think they can make a lot of money in 2-3 years. Growing something that lasts in Africa takes time, and you have to understand that and be willing to put in the time. Would I do anything differently? I don't think so. I think everyone's journey is what it is. You start your journey, you run into obstacles, and those are the things that teach you. And those obstacles become stepping stones. So regardless of whatever mistakes I might have made, or whatever advice I would have given a younger self, I would still make mistakes, and I'll still need those mistakes to get to where I am or where I'm trying to go. So I think embracing those mistakes is really part of the journey. I think I heard this quote once that said, making mistakes is fine as long as you don't make the same mistakes. As long as you make different mistakes each time, you're making progress.
Finally, Chinedu, any last words you want to leave us with?
I believe that entrepreneurship is what Africa needs to get out of this phase that we're in. I believe that Africa needs a lot of entrepreneurs to solve problems. And we need brave entrepreneurs who are willing to solve Africa-centric problems. So I want to thank your organization for what you're doing with Africa 2100, because it takes people who've grown and established everything they want to remember that there's another generation coming behind and give a helping hand. So kudos to African 2100, and I would be extending an invitation to any young entrepreneur who wants to take on the challenge of Africa to do so.
Thank you, Chinedu. Well said. And thank you for the inspiring conversation. It's been a pleasure learning about and having you share your journey with our audience. And for those listening in or watching, you heard it. Do your homework. And Africa, the continent, is full of lots of opportunities. And don't be afraid of making a mistake, because it's only by making those mistakes that you learn and you grow. As Chinedu shared with us, you can make one mistake and keep making more mistakes, but don't make the same mistake twice. So with that said, I am Chinedu Nwaeze, your host, and please don't forget to click on that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for joining us.